Let's talk some basketball. Let's get right into it. We're going to be starting with the first bucket after. So OG Anunoby gets the dunk driving on Wemby in a closeout situation. And look at how fast the Spurs get up the floor after a made basket. And this really is the story of how they got going here down the stretch. Harper draws a foul in the open floor. This is the biggest thing that can translate forward to them. They've got to play with as much pace as possible to weaponize some of that youthful exuberance and athleticism they have because of the troubles that they're having in the half court because of how big of a jump shooting gap there is. We talked about this a little bit last night, but the Knicks have been the very best jump shooting team in the NBA in this playoff run. The Spurs have been more of a middle of the pack jump shooting team among the playoff teams. So it's very important for them to avoid that slow down half court environment where in the driving kick setting where the physical dynamic isn't as advantageous for the Spurs as it was in the last round, they need to be in the open floor more. In the half court, the Knicks can really load up on the ball and can kind of counter that advantage. So this is the difference in the defensive look. We saw, and you're going to see a couple of different coverages down the stretch of this game, but the main thing was essentially no more of these outrageous, just outright double teams of Jalen Brunson far away from the basket, simplifying his decision-making tree and getting their defense into rotation. Here you're going to see effectively a double drag, but Deuce is going to slip out of the first screen. We're just going to get a switch. Fox is going to stay on Mikal Bridges, and now Wemby's guarding one-on-one. The reason why I kind of like this idea is, one, it forces Brunson to then attack Victor Wembanyama in space, but you're already kind of conceding Karl Anthony Towns a mismatch underneath the basket anyway. This is something you've conceded the second you decided not to guard him with Wemby. So if you're already going to have Wemby basically functioning as a perimeter defender, why not use him on the other end of screens to try to get stops against Brunson? He gets multiple stops against Brunson down the stretch of the game in a way that helped them come back. Here's an example. You're going to see him force him into a kind of a step through move. Now everyone's guarded because you didn't double team. You have a good perimeter defender guarding Brunson. Everyone else is staying home off the ball. The resulting effect, Brunson has to force this kind of low percentage bounce pass to Cat, which Cat gets, and he goes up quick, but he has no advantage. He's coming from behind the backboard, and Champagnie ends up blocking him clean. We end up with a shot clock violation. Now we're going to run double drag. This double drag is going to end up forcing a switch with Jalen Brunson on De'Aaron Fox. This was one of the other stories of the late run in this game. In the half court, the Spurs indexed more towards trying to attack Brunson in action. Here, De'Aaron Fox just gets into a step back three over the top and knocks it down. Gets tons of separation, much more comfortable there. When you're allowing Brunson to work, you don't want to just let him work solely one-on-one. If he gets any sort of deep dribble penetration, you want to try to shrink the floor on him a little bit. Instead of an outright double team, like if Champagnie, let's talk about what this looks like after the switch. So Brunson likes the Champagnie matchup. He goes at Champagnie. Fox is on Mikal Bridges. So if De'Aaron Fox just outright goes and double teams Jalen Brunson, Brunson has the easiest decision in the world. I'm not shooting this thing. I'm just throwing the ball to Mikal. I throw the ball to Mikal. He's going to take a shot. You'll see an example of that here in a minute where the Spurs end up leaving Mikal Bridges wide open. He just happens to miss a shot. But by virtue of sending more of a dig down, see how it's a dig down? By virtue of sending a dig down rather than a hard double team, because see how he lunges at the ball, but then he lunges back out into the passing lane. Of course, Mikal back cuts him and he's actually wide open. But the point is you made this a more complicated decision. Now it's well, I might just shoot anyway, even though there's an open man here. That can prey on Jalen Brunson making the wrong decision and being overly aggressive, which is what he does here. The right read is to Mikal Bridges, who's wide open on the wing. But because you sent a dig down instead of an early double, you made him make a tougher decision. He makes the wrong decision. He forces it up and ends up missing. Karl Anthony Towns ends up keeping it alive. I'm not going to show the next clip, but with 4 seconds left, they just run a baseline out of bounds play that goes nowhere. Deuce McBride gets the ball in the wing. He ends up forcing up a tough 15-footer and misses it. Actually, I am showing you the play. So Deuce McBride misses the little shot. Good box out from Wemby. They get the rebound. In the push ahead in transition, we get a cross match. That transition cross match ends up with Jalen Brunson on De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox ends up working him one-on-one, goes to this nasty little step-through move towards his left hand to score off the glass. Something to keep in mind there If the Spurs do try going to their all-guard lineup, so Vassell, Fox, Castle, and Harper all together, he's going to start on Vassell, who, by the way, Vassell's a better movement shooter than Champagnie, so the hedge and recover will be less effective there. But in these situations, there will just be more possessions because there's 3 great ball handlers on the floor. There will be more possessions where Brunson just ends up on a ball handler in a transition cross match, and you have an opportunity to quick attack him one-on-one. This is that play where they leave Mikal Bridges open. So this is kind of like a weird, confusing sequence where I think Wemby was starting the possession on Mikal Bridges, but then he was like moving over. Never mind, I'm going to get Cat. Vassell gets kind of caught in between. But this is an example of when you make the decision tree easy, Brunson's not going to mess around. He's just going to throw the pass. That's why you don't, even though this wasn't a double team, that's why you don't double team those. So you don't have just a very simple, easy decision to an open shooter. He gets Vassell with a basic pump fake. He just happens to miss the shot. Going the other way, though, look at Victor Wembanyama playing off 2 feet. I don't like these Victor ISOs too much right now just because he's given up too much strength, but this is an example of how it can work for him in the long run. Watch him make a hard move and dislodge Cat. Boom, dislodges Cat. But instead of rumbling, stumbling off of 1 foot, plays off of 2 feet, keeps a strong base, and is able to pivot and get back to his left hand for a layup. That's why it's important to play off of 2 feet. This is an example of the one play down the stretch where they went to Cat with off-ball action, and they just never went back to this for whatever reason, but they ended up getting what should have been an open shot. So watch, Cat gets the ball. Brunson's going to set a back screen on Fox. When he does, back screen, now he's got inside position. Great read from Brunson. He slips out of it. Cat sees him. Boom. Great read, right? Now, from here, Brunson, once again, is in the decision-making zone, and he has 2 great opportunities. Wemby's going to come over late here, which you'll see in a second, but Mikal Bridges is butt naked in the right corner, wide open. Brunson, though, continues to force the issue and goes up against 2 guys. As you can see here, as he starts to attack, even Landry-Shamet is open too, but this is a little bit hard to read. This is why late help is good. When I talk about late help, when you send late help rather than early help, it's more likely that the ball handler will miss it and fail to make the correct read when he ends up swatting his ass off the glass. But again, you put Brunson into the decision-making zone here. He's making a lot of poor pass-shoot decisions. That's a big part of how the Spurs came back down the stretch of this game. It's a big adjustment that Brunson needs to make as he heads into the next game. When these help decisions are coming later, Brunson's fucking up. When you make the mistake out 25, 30 feet from the basket, the double team or the mistake, like we saw in the Mikal Bridges one, is just a much easier decision for Brunson. He's not going to make that mistake as often. 5-on-4, because Brunson's on the ground, we get in transition the advantage. Devin Vassell trailing the play. Classic great lift jump shot from Devin Vassell goes in. Here's another force from Brunson. So earlier on, we saw Wemby switching ball screens. We're going to see another example of it here later on in a few minutes.